Imagine sitting alone in a small glowing room at night. Your food arrived without a hunt. Your light came on without a fire. Your message crossed the world without your body moving an inch. And yet something still feels wrong. Not dramatic, maybe. Not always visible from the outside. Just a low, heavy sense that modern life is somehow crowded and empty at the same time. We have more ways to connect than any humans in history. More messages, more feeds, more contacts, more noise, and still, millions of people feel profoundly alone. Why? Because loneliness is not just sadness. Loneliness is a signal, and for most of human history, that signal meant something very specific. You are too far from the group. The ancient problem. For prehistoric humans, being alone was not a lifestyle, it was a danger. If you drifted too far from camp, you were farther from warmth, farther from food, farther from protection, farther from help if something went wrong. One twisted ankle alone matters more than one twisted ankle near 20 people. One bad night alone is different from one bad night near a fire, with others listening for danger. For most of our species' history, survival was intensely social. Humans did not evolve as elegant lone hunters moving silently through the world like cats. We evolved as a deeply interdependent species. We survived by clustering, by returning to camp, by sleeping near one another, by sharing food, by noticing moods, by keeping track of who was hurt, who was absent, who was helpful, who was angry, who was grieving, who needed watching. The human nervous system did not develop in private. It developed in company. Camp life. Try to picture an ordinary prehistoric evening. Not a battle, not a king, not a heroic hunt, just camp life. Smoke in the air, tools being repaired, somebody chewing tough food near the fire, someone laugh at a failed story, children dozing against adults, another person returning late, someone else already noticing the limp in their walk. That kind of life was full of friction. But it was also full of constant signals. You are seen, you are known, you are accounted for, and that matters more than we often admit. A human being does not only need affection in the abstract. A human being also needs regular evidence of social reality. Someone expects you. Someone notices your absence. Someone interrupts you. Someone asks for your help. Someone hands you part of the work. Someone pulls you back into the circle. In ancient life, even when that circle was exhausting, it was still there. Why belonging felt so strong? This is one reason loneliness cuts so deep. It is not simply the lack of conversation. It is the lack of embeddedness. Prehistoric humans were rarely just floating individuals trying to assemble a social life from scratch. They belonged to repeating structures, the same faces, the same roots, the same fire, the same chores, the same tensions, the same rituals. Belonging was not always warm, but it was thick. Modern people often still have contact. What they do not always have is thickness. Plenty of us speak to people all day and still feel socially unreal by night, because a text thread is not the same as being built into somebody else's daily life. An audience is not the same as a camp. A follower is not the same as a companion, and visibility is not the same as belonging. Shared work. Ancient humans were not connected mainly by talking about connection. They were connected by doing things together. Carrying wood, preparing food, watching children, scanning the dark, making tools, walking long distances, processing hides, cleaning, planning, remembering. Shared labor is one of the oldest forms of human bonding. You do not have to manufacture intimacy from nothing when your lives are already entangled by necessity. That is part of what modern life often strips away. Many people now live physically separate from extended family, work in highly specialized roles, commute alone, eat alone, and come home too tired to build community deliberately from the ground up. And then we blame ourselves for not feeling connected enough. But the deeper problem may be structural. Ancient life made togetherness unavoidable. Modern life often makes it optional, effortful, and easy to postpone. Ritual, rhythm, and repetition. Then there is rhythm. Human beings seem to do well with repeated social forms. Shared meals, shared mourning, shared songs, shared stories, shared ceremonies, shared routes, shared time. Ancient people had fewer distractions, fewer private entertainment systems, and far fewer ways to disappear into personalized worlds. That does not mean their lives were easier, it means their lives were harder in ways that forced synchrony. People woke together, moved together, worked together, rested together. Modern life gives us astonishing freedom, but it also lets every person drift onto a separate schedule, separate media stream, separate emotional weather system, separate room. The tribe once had one fire. Now everyone carries a tiny glowing fire in their own hand. And sometimes that makes us feel connected, but sometimes it quietly replaces presence with simulation. Why the signal still hurts. The important point is not that prehistoric life was utopian. It was dangerous, exhausting, and full of conflict. People annoyed each other, judged each other, competed with each other, lost each other. But even then, the human brain was calibrated inside dense social environments. So when modern people feel lonely, they are not necessarily failing at life. They may be experiencing a very old alarm inside a very new world. Your body does not always know the difference between "I am morally defective" and "I am underconnected for the kind of creature I am." That is why loneliness can feel so bodily, so embarrassing, so heavy, so out of proportion. Some part of the organism is not merely saying, "I wish I had plans." It is saying, "I do not feel held inside a human group strongly enough." The modern mismatch. In some ways, modern society is spectacularly successful. We can survive longer with fewer people physically near us than our ancestors ever could. That is a triumph, but it creates a mismatch. We built a world where physical survival requires less immediate community, while emotional stability may still depend on more of it than we like to admit. You can now pay for food, transport, entertainment, heating, and convenience without ever becoming necessary to the people around you. And that is a strange condition for a species shaped by mutual dependence. Ancient humans were not just loved, they were needed. That may be one of the hidden keys here. People often talk about loneliness as if the answer is only to be seen. But humans may also need to matter functionally, to carry part of the load, to be expected, to be useful, to have a place in the machinery of other lives. Not because usefulness is all that matters, but because in deep time, usefulness and belonging were often woven together. What ancient humans knew. So what did ancient humans know that we keep forgetting? Probably this: belonging is not built only out of affection. It is built out of proximity, repetition, obligation, memory, usefulness, ritual, and time. It is built when people keep showing up in the same place long enough to become real to one another. It is built when life overlaps, when meals are shared, when work is shared, when grief is shared, when boredom is shared, when the ordinary hours are shared. Not every connection needs to be profound, but human beings seem to need a social world that feels inhabited. Ancient camp life provided that almost by default. Modern life often does not. So why are we so lonely today? Maybe because the problem is older than the phone and deeper than the app. Maybe loneliness hurts because it is not just a passing mood. It is one of the oldest warning systems our species has. For hundreds of thousands of years, a human being too far from the group was in trouble. And now many of us live in a world where we are safer than ever, more connected than ever, and still carrying a brain that asks the same ancient question: where is everybody? That does not mean we need to go back to caves. It does not mean ancient life was better. But it may mean this: if modern people want to feel less lonely, we should stop imagining the solution as more content, more reach, or more surface contact, and start taking more seriously what ancient humans actually depended on: shared time, shared work, shared ritual, shared presence, and a circle that notices when you are gone. Maybe that is what the old camp understood. Not that humans need endless stimulation, that humans need each other at ordinary range, near enough to be interrupted, near enough to be useful, near enough to belong.